Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our East Bay Regional Park District meeting on operations, the Operations Committee. Welcome. And we'll go ahead and begin the meeting by calling a roll call.
Thank you, Chair Corbett. Director Rosario.
Here.
Director Wieskamp.
Here.
Chair Corbett.
Here.
Acting AGM Steve Castile.
Here.
And staff presenters and participating staff attending today's meeting include Ruby Tumber, Tiffany Margolisi, Robert Kennedy, Michael Moran, Andrew Green, Matt Norton, and Cassabon, David Vance, and Tammy Andrews. Today's meeting is held pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by AB 361. Board members and staff may participate via phone video conferencing. Today's meeting is being conducted virtually with live audio and video streaming provided. Public comments may be submitted live via Zoom, via email, or via voicemail as noted on the agenda located on the Park District website. So if there are no further questions about the meeting procedures, we will begin.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valentine. Does anybody have any questions before we go ahead and start?
Nope.
All right. Well, we have a lot of great items on the agenda today, and let's start with the review of the Redwood Canyon Golf Course Amendment with Touchstone Golf LLC near the Lake Chabot Regional Park. Good morning, Ms. Margolisi.
Morning, Tiffany Margolisi, Business Services Manager, Acting AGM Castile. Did you want to make any opening comments or shall I start?
Take it away, Tiff.
Okay, sounds good. So I will be presenting an update and proposed changes to the Redwood Canyon Golf Course lease. And with me here is my team is Park Supervisor Tammy Andrews and the Unit Manager Dave Vance, because Redwood Canyon is part of Lake Chabot Park. And we also have guests, Touchstone Golf CEO Steve Parker. So my thought as I was putting together this presentation today was to provide the right amount of detail. This is a very detailed presentation. I have even more detail in my back pocket if there's questions, but I wanted to go through and provide a little bit of overview of what's happened so far, so it's fresh in everyone's mind, and then talk about the proposal for two areas that we would like to further improve. So I'm going to share my screen. As you can see my screen, and I'm making it in full screen. And does that look good?
Notes.
I don't think we're in full screen yet.
Thank you. Okay, how's that? I gotta swap it.
There we go.
Perfect. All right. So here's a beautiful aerial view of the golf course. Here's the overview. I'm going to talk a lot about location, and I always do that so that we know where we're talking about, but especially there's some really location specific issues with Redwood Canyon. So I'm going to review and then refresh all our minds on the lease background, and then talk about how far we've come. We've made a lot of accomplishments since the start of this lease, and a lot of improvements to the management, the customer experience, and the overall community participation in the course, which are really exciting. Then we have a few things that are in the works we're working on, and then two things that we have are not resolved yet, but we have a proposal on how to resolve them for the committee to vote on. So like I said, we did talk about the location. Down here is the green dot is the Redwood Canyon Golf Course. Over here, hopefully you can see my cursor okay. You see Lake Chabot. And then up in the upper corner of the map is the Upper San Leandro Reservoir. Upper San Leandro Reservoir is part of the East Bay Mud water supply system, and the Redwood Canyon Golf Course is leased from East Bay Mud. As part of the lease from East Bay Mud retains the right to spill or discharge from the Upper San Leandro Reservoir should they need to. And so it is a fact of the location that this golf course is in a floodplain of the Upper San Leandro Reservoir. So that's just one of our management realities for the course. The Upper San Leandro Reservoir is used for drinking water. We'll talk about the irrigation system and further water saving measures that we would like to implement at the course. One thing I've learned is that even though the irrigation system at the golf course uses raw water, that is then depleting the available drinking water supply from the Upper San Leandro Reservoir. And I learned from Touchstone Golf that in 2021, East Bay Mud actually had to purchase water from the state to bring Upper San Leandro Reservoir up to the levels it needed for drinking water. So that's just some background as to when I get in later in the presentation, why water savings is, well, it's always important, but especially important for this location. So then stepping back a little bit to Redwood Canyon Golf. So in 2014, there was a 50-year lease that ended with Willow Park Golf. And as I think most everyone knows, there was a significant deterioration of the asset, which is the Park District's asset, the building and the below ground assets, the irrigation system. Those are all the Park District's assets. We own them and we're responsible for them. At the time of the ending of the 50-year lease, to address the deterioration, the district made a capital investment of over $2 million, mostly focused on the above ground assets. So the buildings, getting the buildings back up to a more usable, good condition. So in 2014, at the end of this 50-year lease with Willow Park, the district entered into the interim facility management agreement with Touchstone Golf. Then during that time, the Park District went out to a request for proposal twice. The first time the request for proposal was seeking the concessionaire to come in and make the improvements to the assets. There was no response. So that's when the district decided to make the over $2 million investment, went out to RFP a second time in 2016, and Touchstone Golf was selected as the concessionaire long-term lessee in 2016. And that structure of that agreement was included some rent credit offset for further capital investment in the irrigation system that needed to be done. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So right after Touchstone, shortly after Touchstone Golf was selected and the Park District was in the negotiation process, there was some catastrophic flooding in 2017. And these are photos of the golf course completely submerged, significant damage, closed for months. And so this delayed the negotiations in finalizing the concession agreement and implemented, caused some provisions to be implemented in the lease, which I'll talk about. So here is the basic structure of the lease. So there's a minimum rent, which starts at $102,000 a year and then increases over the life of the agreement by CPI. So minimum rent, then there's a percentage rent, which is applied when there's sales over $500,000. And then in addition to those, there's the concession maintenance fund, a payment of 5%, like our other concessions. So I talked, if you think about, keep that picture of the flooding, the completely submerged golf course in your minds. This is some of the special provisions in this concession agreement that we don't have in our other concessions. One is the capital rent credit. This was the mechanism by which we were able to complete some of the below ground capital improvements to the irrigation system. So about 80%, they received an 80% rent credit for up to $600,000. This rent credit has now ended. It ended in year 5 of the lease, the concession agreement from 2017 to 2021. and the improvements to the first half of the irrigation system are complete. And I have some pictures. Then the other provision that we have in this lease is called, it's a type of rent abatement when there's a force majeure, an act of God, a catastrophic event, such as the flooding that we saw in the picture. So the district agreed at the time to have a $3,000 a day abatement for full closure, $2,000 a day abatement for partial closure, and $1,000 a day abatement for a driving range closure, and it can accumulate. So that's what we have today. That's the agreement we have today. Now, before I talk about the changes we'd like to make, I want to pause and talk about our accomplishments during this time. One major accomplishment is that the course has been really improved in its resilience to flooding. So we know it's going to flood. We know this is a floodplain area. Touchstone has worked on doing various drainage and shaping improvements. So on the left, showing how the area, this was an area that used to really stay closed and wet for a long time. Here it's nice and shaped, drains great. Touchstone Golf also secured the Audubon International certification, which is a certification for cooperative sanctuary for golf on sustainable management practices. They've really enhanced the wedding and banquet facility. They have over 13,000 annual attendees just for the banquet business, which is really exciting. And then they've also, especially in COVID, really branched out into community events, non-golf community events. They've done the Teas for Bees, which is a very kid-friendly event, educating about pollinators. They had a First Thursdays concert series. And so really looking to grow this as a sense of place for the entire community, not just for golfers. Okay, so now we get into the irrigation system. So here is a photo of some patched aging pipe. This is the example of what the pipe was looking like all over the course. And it was about a 50-year-old system. As I mentioned earlier, this is our asset. It's a below ground asset. Great news is that through that first capital rent credit, Touchstone completed the front 9 holes, the main line, sprinklers, and laterals. Everything is efficient, new, using less water, not leaking. And as Steve Castile educated me yesterday, it's not just about the water, but when you have when you have more even and efficient water distribution, your grass is healthier, you're using less fertilizers, you're using less chemicals, you're saving on maintenance, and it's just has kind of a, you know, almost like a snowball effect in a good way of positive benefits. So in the report, the memo, I talked about how there was a 5 million gallons per year of water loss due to the irrigation system being so old. And that was for the entire 18 holes. So by completing the first 9 holes, we've achieved about half of that savings, 2.5 million gallons a year, which is significant. This project cost $554,000 total, and it was funded from a combination of the rent credit that was in their lease agreement, and then concession maintenance fund. And so that's all done, and we're so relieved. Here's some great pictures. Here's a before and after picture. It's totally uneven. You have dry spots. It doesn't look nice. It's not playable. It's, you know, inefficient. And here is the after system. This is the 4th golf hole fairway. So that's everything that's been done, which is a lot. In progress still, we are still working through what we call the FEMA project. This is the FEMA funded recovery from the 2017 floods, which were a federally declared disaster. That project includes bridge replacement, additional drainage, dredging of the channel to restore the channel to its proper function. And that project is in the design and permitting phase and would be aiming for a 2024 construction. And here's the photos showing one of the bridges that was completely wiped away during the 2017 storms.
Can I ask a
Yes.
quick question?
Mhm.
So that began in 2017,
Yes, this was
but
the
it's
20.
not, but is
Mhm.
not expected to be completed, that repair, till 24.
That is correct. It's a very intensive process. One thing that when I worked in grants department, we would say sometimes we bring the money and we bring the pain. So we have, it's wonderful. We're working with FEMA on the funding, and it also brings additional steps for the federal environmental review and approval of the project. So that's, and it's a big project, but that's part of the reason there's such a long horizon there.
At some point, it would be interesting to hear why it's taken that much time.
Yeah. And, Jeff Rasmussen is the project manager on that, and he has a lot more he can share on the challenges of getting the project approved with FEMA.
Thank
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The other thing that's still in progress that we're working on through our 553 major infrastructure funding is there's one additional roof that needs to be replaced and some additional paving improvements. So those are all things that are in play that we have a plan for and we're working on. Okay, here's some more pictures of bad irrigation, uneven irrigation. Here you can see a leak. So this is not supposed to be a swampy area, and here we see more very uneven irrigation. So the staff has been reviewing all this. There's really two issues that we want to fully come up with a plan for with the board's, with the committee's approval. One is how to complete the final phase of the irrigation system. So the back nine, and not only how to complete it, but how to complete it as quickly as possible so that we stop this continuous waste of water. Touchstone Golf says there is about a leak a day. So a leak a day, they are working on patching, and as soon as they patch it, there's another leak. So we're losing a lot of water, and we want to stop that, especially considering the drought conditions. The second area staff would like to address with Touchstone is that the force majeure rent abatement, which I talked about, in light of the upcoming improvements to the course for drainage, there is going to be less risk for the manager of this course, for the concessionaire. And in light of there being less risk, we have renegotiated the amount of the rent abatement to soften that a bit and bring that a little bit more in balance with what the improved conditions of the course will be. Okay, so the first one is the irrigation. So the back nine holes of the irrigation, that includes main line, laterals, sprinklers, all of that. That is a total estimated cost of $700,000. We are proposing that the most efficient and timely way to get the project completed would be to do a combination of rent credit, so a second round of rent credit to Touchstone, and concession maintenance fund. And here's yet another picture of leaky irrigation causing, cooling of water and poor playing conditions too. The rent credit for this second round of rent credit would be on the percentage rent only. So one of our goals is that for the master plan is that our concessions are to be, bringing in some nominal amount of revenue. That's part of the goal of concessions. And this round would be, we would still retain the minimum rent per the agreement. and the credit would be received on the percentage only. The proposal is the credit would begin in 2022. It would end within 2 to 3 years. Revenues are projected to be up at the course. This would be paid off pretty quickly. Why do credit instead of just waiting for concession maintenance fund to accumulate? And that is so that we can get this project timeline up sooner and get the benefits sooner. So concession maintenance fund, the way that fund works is we need to wait for that fund to accumulate and then we reimburse out of that fund. If we had to wait for the concession maintenance fund to accumulate the full $700,000, we would be pushing this project out several years into the future. So by doing a combination of rent credit and CMF, that allows us to start get the work done sooner and get the benefits sooner. So the plan would be, if approved by the committee, that Touchstone would construct the final phase of the irrigation this year within 2022. Okay, I have a little bit more. So then the second item I talked about is the fact that we've made so many improvements, and with the FEMA project would be making even more improvements. We have discussed with Touchstone that based on the conditions that are going to improve, we would like to have less of a abatement in the case of flooding. And this was also included in the memo as an attachment. And on the left shows what we currently have. On the right shows what the proposed would be. So going down from a $3,000 a day for full closure down to $2,000, $2,000 down to $1,000 for back 9. That's usually the wettest area and most subject to closure. No abatement if the driving range is closed. We would clarify that this abatement really only applies to flooding, and that's what it was intended for. It's because of the unique circumstances and geographic location of the course. Up until now, it has been unrestricted, so it's been used for high wind or other types of closures. And really the intent here was to address flooding. So that would be addressed. There would also be a cap so that it can't accumulate year after year. Should there be a lot of closures due to flooding, there would still be a cap. So it would never exceed the minimum rent for that year. And last but not least, the abatement would not start to accumulate until day 6 within a calendar year. So if there was some incidental closures here and there, 1 or 2 days or up to 5 days in the calendar year, there would not be this rent abatement invoked. It would only start at day 6, again, which is more representative of the intent of this clause, which is to recognize that there is some risk to having this, operating this course downstream from a reservoir. So that's where I'm going to pause. I have my guests here. I have more numbers and details if we want to go there, if people have questions. But that's the basics that we are looking to for the committee's recommendation to amend the lease for a 3rd time for a $400,000 rent credit, with the goal of completing the final phase of the irrigation project. And then as a condition of moving forward with that credit, also amend the force majeure section 4.7 of the current agreement. And I think what I'll do, I'll stop my screen share for a minute so we can all see each other. And also I have CEO Touchstone, Steve Parker here to add or answer questions, or if I have missed anything.
Okay, thank you very much. The part I like the most is moving quickly to complete the projects. but I may have some other questions. So thank you. I'm going to open it up to our directors, Director Wieskamp, Director Rosario. Do you have any questions? Director Wieskamp, would you like to start?
Oh, I think Dee had some, so let him get started.
Okay, Director Rosario.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I support the concept here. My question here, several, is one is regarding water use with our continued drought and probably not getting out of it soon. Is there a master plan for the irrigation to, I mean, if the governor is successful in mandating mandatory conservation, do we have a plan?
Yeah.
I think I think part of what I'm hearing in the question is, what if we do the project and even if we save 2.5 million gallons a year, what if that's still not enough? What is our next step? And I will see if Steve Parker would like to chime in on that.
Yes, Director Rosario, very good question. So with the new system, we have control over each sprinkler head. So areas that are in the rough or out of the center areas of play, not on the greens, we'll be able to dial those back and maintain the grass, but do so in a much drier condition. We can also very easily turn off certain areas. So we'll have total control. Right now, we have little or no control over the system.
Yeah, that's exactly the answer I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you for being looking forward at, and this is your business, and I'm glad you're looking at that. Second one is, have we ever audited the amount of nitrates coming out of the golf course and going into Lake Chabot? Just because of the advent of also climate change and algae blooms.
I do know we did water tests, I want to say last year, but I don't have those results. We could certainly get them for you. And I forget which agency was requiring that, but we have been testing the water in the creek.
Okay, and I know Steve has experience with the Presidio.
Yeah, we can help out, find those results for you, Director Rosario. I mean, typically, the one thing about the Audubon certification is that you are currently using the best management practices for golf course applications. And a lot of the times, the fertilizers that are put on there are in such small quantities on the fairways and usually generally a minimal or nothing in the roughs. And then the ones that are done on the greens are typically done by a sprayer application and fine micro mists. So it's calculated out down to the pound on what's going on as per what's required during the growing season. So it's applied at a rate that is very calculated and very precise, so you have minimal runoff.
Okay, good. And then my last question is, have we, in the first half of the irrigation rehab, have we tracked the cost to see if, what am I trying to say? Has the cost, the actual cost of the rehab exceeded the rent or the credit, or vice versa?
We have, Touchstone's contributed some additional funds to the project in excess of the rent credit. But it came in on budget.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just concerned about accountability. I just want to make sure that we know the dollars that are going into it and vice versa. So, great.
And I can add to that I meant to say this earlier, that when we in the first round of rent credit, and should the second round be approved, we require and have received for the first round a full financial accounting documentation, costs, proof of payment, and the person who gets a lot of thanks for that is my admin analyst, Renee Patterson. She's not on the call today, but this is a very finance and documentation heavy agreement. And we are very careful and diligent down to the penny that we are, that they have met or exceeded the rent credit amount. Also coming up, anyway, but I think, we spend a lot of time with that, and we treat it, rent credit, we treat the financial documentation just as we would a reimbursement. Steve knows that, and his accounting staff know how closely we look at that.
And Director Rosario, if I can add in, I went out there quite frequently during the last renovation for the front nine on the irrigation. The project was really managed well, very efficient on the staffing, very minimal impact on the plate of the public. So they were actually able to accomplish a complete renovation on the 9 holes with minimal, disruption. So they had the golf course that was open. They completed all of the work that was done in a very, very timely manner, came in at a very good price. I've been on these types of work projects before, and it was just handled very well.
Great. Well, thank you. I think that answers all my questions. And at some point, I would love to see the accounting, the paperwork. Just, that's how I am, I guess. I appreciate the care and the efficiency that you're dealing with it. And the course is just wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Rosario. Director Wieskamp?
More and more, I'm so pleased that we chose you to be
Thank
our
you.
partners in this, because it strikes me all along the way, it's been an excellent relationship where people wanted to do the right thing and they wanted to treat the public with respect, try to keep them happy and coming, and at the same time, think ahead on things like water, which is, God knows right now, so vital and important. And I trust our staff. As Steve said, it looked good and modern and moving on schedule. I think everybody was working together, and that doesn't always happen in public agencies. And so congratulations to everybody involved. I'm really impressed. Look forward to, I'm sure on getting this second part done and accomplished. Like Ellen, having it complete is such a good idea. So good job.
Thank you.
And Touchstone has been fantastic partners. Just to start off with, also, they recruited one of the best irrigation designers on the West Coast. I've used them as well many times. They're very renowned. They have very good plans on the design. The addition of the shutoff valves is a huge water savings, because prior to this, they would have to shut down the entire and drain the entire system, which is miles of line. Now they can isolate everything down to the valves, down to the sprinkler heads, control the water, dial it down. It's just down to a science now. So
It's really modern.
yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I have a few comments too. As I already mentioned, moving quickly to fix the way things are done in order to make the grass green where we want it. I would ask, just thinking about the golf course and what you've been through. It wasn't that many years ago when we had the flooding, serious flooding. The whole place was closed down. And now, looking into the future, you'll be looking for water. So this is a question just to think about for the future. I wonder if it even makes sense, whether we should come up with some sort of system to have water saved in some way to be used in tough years when we don't have the rain. We know in some of our other parks, some of our staff have put together water retainers to use in the future. Maybe we should start thinking about the future and doing those sorts of things, finding ways to save some water, and then that can be used for your irrigation instead of having to work with these difficult challenges with the water district that's having its own issues, and we're so close to that area where the water comes down the creek. So maybe those are some sorts of things we should at least study or think about. And was also wondering if part of this plan, it sounds like it might be something you have already thought about, Steve, is that there's obviously parts of the golf course that need its irrigation, right? You know, the actual golf course. I wonder if there's ways that we should be thinking that certain parts of the golf course might not need as much irrigation, where the golfing is actually, you know more about golf than me, but so that there's areas along the sides that could be, you know, they could do with less irrigation.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I mean, there are golf courses built like that, where there are areas that are dry that aren't part of the main course. So if you knock your golf ball way off the course and it ends up in a dry spot, you don't get complained about that.
Right.
But I'm just wondering if we should have some way of thinking, because we do know there's going to be differences in our environment coming up. And that's not just for you to worry about, Steve, but we should be worried about that as a park district as well, because, you know, that land surrounds the golf course that we care about as well. So is that a possibility at some point to maybe talk about those such things?
Director Corbett, it was actually done as a part of the design. So Russ Mitchell and Associates, when they came in, the original design had a lot more sprinkler heads and areas of coverage, irrigation coverage. And so we did reduce it at that time. And then, as I said previously, you can control it to a point where if water, well, it is an issue. As water is an issue, we can go drier or not water at all certain sections of the golf course. So we do have that flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a part of the original design to minimize the amount of water to be used.
So we do have that option to plan in that way.
Yes.
If nature doesn't smile on us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And, you know, certainly appreciate that you're taking the time to fix the system to make it work. And we're appreciating you for that.
Thank you.
So,
I have one last question
yes, Director Rosario.
about the force majeure. I'm thinking of, I mean, Steve has during our fire events, when it was basically shelter in place for the communities around in the East Bay. I mean, I foresee that there could be times when those fire events could last more than a week, and I was wondering if maybe we should include smoke or fire as because I'm looking at that East Bay mud. I mean, as a flooding only, you may have to close due to fire for more than 6 days. So I'm just wondering if maybe that should be considered.
Yeah, I can answer that. And certainly if the committee would like us to consider it, I know Touchstone Golf would really, I know Steve will say yes. He would very much like that to be considered. I think from you know, with my business services manager hat on, from a consistency point of view, typically what we would do if a concession is closed is they would not pay rent for that day. They don't, so just whatever the rent is owed, they don't pay that. What we've been implementing with the force majeure is an amount that's above and beyond what the rent would be for that day. And so my recommendation from the business services manager point of view is that we could certainly extend the no rent. That's what we do with all our concessions. That my recommendation would be to not have a $1,000 or $2,000 abatement for those because that's not what we have at our other locations. But I'm certainly open to any direction from the committee.
Yeah, well, if you think if that's worked in the past for you, and I mean, I'd be happy. I just wanted to make sure that force of nature is covered, because it's going to be in our future for a long time. So I just want to make sure we had that under consideration.
We can definitely take a look at that, Director Rosario.
Great, thank you.
Could we also get some additional information? I mean, I think it could be presented at a committee meeting, or perhaps something can be printed, or maybe it's already printed. The work that's being done to address some of these future nature issues we have to deal with. You know, the lack of rain and fires nearby, those sorts of things. Just so we have that background information on things we have to deal with and plan for in the future. Because these are things we have to plan for in the future. So we might as well start working on ways to support those in a positive way.
Coming up in at the May BOC, I believe we're going to give a update on where we are with the water conservation plan
Okay.
across the district. So we'll be reporting out on that.
Okay, very good. And then will we also hear about concerns about fire and how it impacts certain areas?
We could probably do that as well, yes.
Okay, sounds good.
Great, thank you.
Happy news. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Anything else in the presentation staff would like to add?
I would just like to say that, you know, back in 2014, when the East Bay Regional Park District made a decision, a very difficult decision, to keep the golf course open and to figure out a way to make it work. It's really commendable that you did that at that time, and there was quite a bit of risk involved. And teaming up my group with your group has worked out, as Director Wieskamp pointed out, exceptionally well. And revenue has doubled since that time, since 2014. And we're on a really, really good path now. And allowing us to complete this irrigation system quickly this year will put us in a great spot on a go-forward basis and ensure the golf course is sustainable.
Well, good. That's very, very good news. Thank you. Director Wieskamp.
You know, it strikes me that it wouldn't hurt for us to do a little publicity so the public understands what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how we're paying attention to things like the water shortage and how we can react quickly. I think they don't always trust what government's doing, but pointing it out, yes, there may be times when this is going to be brown over here. That's because we're joining in and using less water. So I think we ought to try to do that. I'm sure our staff can come up with a way.
I would really like to know more about the fact whether it would make sense to save water in the winter time, even just for the local facility. I know, of course, there's costs and all that, but just thinking about what has been done in another part of our park district, I'm wondering if that sort of idea would make sense.
Yeah.
So hope we can kind of look at that. Okay. All right, thank you. Would anybody like to make the motion on the resolution to amend the Touchstone Golf agreement?
I will make the motion to
I will
offer
second.
authorization to amend the Redwood Canyon Golf Course concession agreement with Touchstone Golf LLC, Lake Chabot Regional Park.
Second,
Thank you very much. Motion made by Director Rosario and seconded by Director Wieskamp. Please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Corbett, Director Rosario,
Aye.
Director Wieskamp,
aye.
Chair Corbett,
Aye.
so moved.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice to see you, Mr. Harker.
Thank you. We'll see you
Nice
soon.
presentation.
We should come visit and see what's going on.
For
soon.
sure. Yeah, we'd love to see that. That'd be fantastic.
Okay,
Thank
let
you.
us know when you'd like to show off your good work.
Okay, thank you.
That's a celebration.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you. All right. So our next item 3, is the Interpretive and Recreation Services update in the Northwest region.
Thank you very much, Director Corbett. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if I may, please.
Yes, certainly.
And let me know if that comes up. Keep my fingers crossed.
Yes.
You can see it. Pretty flowers.
There.
Looking good.
Thank you very much. All right. Whoops. Gotta get back one here. Pardon my jumping the gun. Great. Thank you very much, Board Operations Committee, Chair Corbett, Directors Rosario and Wieskamp, and my colleagues and members of the public. My name is Mike Moran. I'm the Regional Interpretive and Recreation Services Manager for the Northwest Region for East Bay Regional Park District. And I thank you. I'm very gratified for the opportunity to tell you what's been happening out in the Northwest region and what we're looking forward to in time to come. As a reminder, Northwest region is made up of Coyote Hills Regional Park and Visitor Center, the Tidewater Boating Center on beautiful Oakland, California, Crab Cove Visitor Center, the Jugside Visitor Center at Crab Cove, Tilden Nature Area in the hills above Berkeley, and the mobile education units. And on this map, it kind of contradicts the Northwest moniker. However, we do have North and we have a lot of West. So it's everything on the left side here that the Northwest unit covers. And do note that mobile education and outdoor recreation provide outreach, interpretive recreation services to the entire district, not just to our sector. We had a lot of highlights in 21-22. COVID peskily remained one of those highlights, but our adaptations to it were really exciting. With the big news and that brought joy throughout the land was the return to in-person programs. That's really our gold standard that we offer to connect people to parks. Our digital programming is here to stay. Regional Parks Foundation, again, was an invaluable collaborator, and we really pushed forth at our professional development with our diversity, equity, and inclusion training, DEI Summit, which we'll talk about in a bit. We're looking forward to some media training and professional development in the form of a certified interpretive guide. And that's an internationally recognized professional certification for interpretive professionals. And that's offered by the National Association for Interpretation. And then we'll get into some site highlights. And nothing like starting a really exciting presentation with a chart full of numbers. But if you look at the right-hand column, what we're really excited about is the two numbers that are circled in red. The in-person totals just for the Northwest region are pushing 30,000 people. And that's not to pre-COVID levels, but it's on a really steep trajectory back towards returning to what would be considered normal. So that's really exciting. And if we look at the virtual programs that we weren't even doing much of before COVID, we have 45,000 folks that were served in our virtual programs just in the Northwest sector in 2021. So our service is really picking up, and that's super exciting. It's what we're in business for. Speaking of digital programming, one of the things that we have found is this value in hybrid programming, where we could go ahead and broadcast ourselves, do digital live programming while also inviting a live in-person audience. And a great example of that was back in January when we did the King Tide program, the highest tides of the year, really exciting natural phenomenon. And we stationed naturalists throughout the East Bay shoreline and had essentially live broadcasts where folks can provide updates and interpretation of what was happening, as well as speak with folks and interpret to them who happen to be at the park at the same time. We're continuing our other digital programming and really kicking up our social media presence. Facebook still remains a staple. We are following trends and getting a lot more popular on Instagram, providing reels, which are videos on Instagram, very popular. And we're exploring TikTok. We're seeing if that's really a place for East Bay Regional Park District. Obviously a very popular platform, but we want to make sure it's the right fit. So we're still in exploration phase with that one. And Regional Parks Foundation, as I said, invaluable. When everybody pivoted back in 2020 and shelter in place, Regional Parks Foundation shifted funding that was going to transportation and programming and allowed us to shift that over to adapt programming and services and materials for folks to come out and use the parks in a COVID-safe way, like backpacks and toolkits and such that we've spoken of previously. This year, really happy to see boating, camping, and fishing scholarships returns that will be providing those services to people in person. And what's getting a lot of us really excited is the Teen Eco Action cohorts. Some of you folks may be familiar with Teen Eco, but it's a long running program. But these are programs where we partner with a local organization and team with them to serve youth in an intensive 5-day program where they are learning, they're going through interpretive and recreation activities, adventure learning, service learning and projects, career exploration, professional development, talking about schools and such. And if they stay for the entire 5 days, they get a stipend. So it's a really an exciting program. Staff loves it. And we're pushing 4 of those out with the help of the foundation to partners in Union City, Bay Point, Richmond, and Oakland. So I thank the foundation for that. Training is always going on. And of course, the top priority is to be COVID safe. Through our videography, through the social media, over the last couple of years, we have really developed some in-house expertise, which is allowing us to do that training a lot more flexibly in-house, whereas before we kind of farmed it out. The DEI, our diversity, equity, and inclusion training, Interpret and Rec Services has been doing this now for about 7 years. And we brought a lot of our efforts to culmination last November, where we provided a DEI summit. And that was essentially a seminar where each work group presented to not only staff members, but members of the public and community, how they incorporated these sometimes conceptual, sometimes amorphous ideas of DEI into everyday operations. And the importance was not only that we did it, but that we showed folks that it can be done, that these concepts are definitely applicable to everyday operations. That was a really exciting one back in November. If we look at the upper right here, natural skills and the certified interpretive guide, we spoke of the CIG being the National Association for Interpretation. And again, that's a requirement for naturalists and naturalist aides. Consider that a framework upon which to build a really stellar interpretive program. But the natural skills, the natural cultural history, the knowledge, the ways of introducing new concepts for folks, that's that natural skill. And we're working now on really blending these things now that we have that baseline framework. And a lot more of our trainings are sliding back more towards those naturalist skills. So we're really excited about blending these things, especially with our new staff coming on. We have a lot of new staff coming on. Mobile education, we'll get into the site reviews here for their different work groups. Mobile education, one of their really stellar programs is SHINE, Stay Healthy in Nature Every Day. That's this collaboration and partnership with Benioff, UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital. It's been so successful as it's been going now that the psychiatry and psychology clinics at those hospitals want to become part of this program so they can come out and take advantage of the park in part of their medical attention. Walk with a Doc we started up with Kaiser this year. National Geographic has sent a photographer now twice down to Crown Beach as part of their Photo Arc project. And that's to photograph every species that's in captivity the world over. And they've come to Crown Beach twice because we have the most diverse collection of freshwater California native fish anywhere in the state. And so Joel Satori came by, and it was a joy working with him. Mobile education has led the charge in coming back to in-person programming in 98% of the schools that they serve. Over half of the kids at those places are eligible for the free and reduced lunch program. So we're really reaching out into the community to folks that have historically been underserved. But that's been mobile education's charge all the way through. They always do a great job with that. We want to welcome new resource analyst Tom Law, who's doing a great job hiding behind coveralls and a mask and a hat. He came to us through from the Oakland Museum of California, and he's done a lot of work with us in the past. A very qualified fella and really taken well to the job. And we are bidding a fond and very sad farewell to Supervisor James Wilson, who is going to be leaving the Park District for a very exciting opportunity with the Martinez Land Trust as the stewardship coordinator. So we'll miss James. He's leaving us at the end of this month. He's done an amazing amount of work for us community, and we will be definitely staying in touch with him and counting on him for information and help as we go forward. But we'll miss him.
Maybe we can still partner with him.
Oh, that's the plan, Director Corbett. Thank you very much. Outdoor recreation, another busy place. These teen eco action programs, outdoor recreation leads the charge on these. And the way that outdoor recreation has incorporated their DEI concepts is really through accessibility, through folks who have historically had a hard time getting accessibility to park programs and facilities. We got a $30,000 grant from the Coastal Commission to purchase adaptive kayaking equipment so we can really expand our opportunities throughout our shoreline parks and lakes. And in the picture, in the lower left-hand picture, this is Bonnie Lukowitz. She is the accessibility coordinator for Bay Area Outreach Program based over in Berkeley, with whom we've been working for years. Mm-hmm. And Bonnie is working with Recreation and Public Affairs in really upping our game in the Trails Challenge program, very popular program, but to make it a lot more attractive to folks of all mobilities and abilities, to be very specific about how you describe a trail tread. How about 50 feet down the trail, there's a divot. Where's the first bench? So all these things that we need that expertise is really going to improve our offerings over at the Trails Challenge program. Parking at Day Camp, you could hear the caretakers and parents throughout the East Bay singing hallelujah that we're going back to 8 weeks this summer. Measure FF has funded a new recreation coordinator, outdoor recreation coordinator. That's be primarily for outreach, which is outdoor recreation's bread and butter. We have a new supervisor, Kelsey Gillen, in the upper left here. And Kelsey, if you'll indulge me, is a great EBRPD story. She started as an interpretive student aide over at Tilden. She was an intern with me when I was at Black Diamond, these many years ago. Kelsey worked in that internship, provided teachers the opportunity for input to guide the construction of the Big Break Visitor Center at the Delta. And her work saved us anywhere from tens of thousands of dollars to a couple $100,000 in design and features that we didn't have to put into the visitor center. So Kelsey has been a recreation leader, recreation coordinator, and now she's the supervisor. Really excited about that. Speaking of rec leaders, every summer, every season, we hire 35 to 50 of these seasonal employees, and they are fabulous at providing our programs. However, as has been happening in a lot of places, we're having a tough time recruiting folks. Our limited amount of hours, the fact that folks have to work several jobs, wage concerns, these have all hit us hard. We're working with human resources, and they have been really cooperative in increasing our recruitment. And we're in process, we're improving, but this is an ongoing concern. And the Tidewater project to make that climate resilient park out of the shoreline has begun with utilities updates and upgrades. And that project we hope to have done by the end of the summertime. Crab Cove Visitor Center, the Doug Seiden Visitor Center at Crab Cove, the renaming and leading the charge under that new name is our new supervisor, Felicia Walker. She comes to us from the Oakland Zoo, and Felicia's professionalism, her skill set, her experience we really nailed it. We got a great leader over at Crab Cove. We're really happy to have her, and she's been doing some fantastic work as they increase their in-person programs to a sense of normalcy. When you go down to the Cove on Saturdays and Sundays, it looks like the Crab Cove of old and the Crab Cove of new. Staff has also generated 5 new next generation science standard aligned programs for 4th graders. All of our programs are aligned to the next generation science standards, but these 5 new ones really speak to the district initiative on climate literacy, climate resiliency, as well as ocean acidification. And Crab Cove staff is integrating their DEI. One of their big events is to lead Black Birders Week, which is coming up at the end of May and beginning of June. And Felicia and her staff have set up birding programs in different parks throughout the district on every day of the week during Black Birders Week. And they have been updating the Leona Canyon Plant Walk and Memory Lane Brochure Walk, which have been in use for years, but bringing those up to 2022 DEI sensibilities. Coyote Hill.
May I ask a question? When did
Please do,
Felicia?
Director Corbett. Yes.
When did Felicia start?
Felicia started in August. She's coming up on the end of her probation very soon.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah. Coyote Hills, Dumbarton Visitor or Dumbarton Quarry Campground by the Bay opened up, which means campfires. That means more interpretive programs. That means more space to do different types of programming. So Chris Sulotz and his staff, Supervisor Chris Sulotz and his staff, are working on those. Up in the upper right here, Ruth Orta has been an Ohlone woman, has been working with and helping out Coyote Hill staff, the district for years, for decades, really. And the Orta family, 4 generations of the Orta family worked very kindly with Coyote Hill staff to make 4 films and speak to their experience as Indigenous peoples in this area. And those 4 short films have already garnered 33,000 plus views on social media. Patterson property, we're working with our pals over at the planning department to make sure that when we're up and running and have everything open, we'll have our trail signs up. We're working on interpretive displays there, interpretive panels as well. Tilden Nature Area has been a very busy place this year. At the Environmental Education Center or the Visitor Center, Jewel Lake and Wildcat Creek, the Jewel Lake feasibility study has been kicked into high gear. We're exploring reclassifying one of our positions. We have 2 administrative specialists, one of whom has traditionally been charged with the front desk duties and managing interpretive student aids and public use to more accurately reflect the kind of service we provide and the service that the public is expecting. We're proposing reclassifying that as a naturalist aid. And the new Environmental Education Center, the new Visitor Center that has been proposed and planned over the years, kind of a 2-year hiatus during COVID. And those meetings are now being restarted and our interest is being resurrected there. And we got a new naturalist from Measure FF to work predominantly on outreach. And we'll start with that. That is Melissa Folks. And we're very happy to have her. I hired Melissa over at Big Break, but she's over here at Tilden now, really doing her heart's desire of working in outreach and really making connections with the community. That's been her work history. And we're working to configure the staff, as I mentioned, with that reclassification and Melissa coming out to really increase our outreach. Tilden itself is always a very crowded, very popular place. And we're really looking to push those services and those connections to the park out into the community. So outreach, engagement, sector presence, we're really looking to increase that under Melissa and our new staff configurations. And we got a remodeled office as part of an asbestos project. We got a new floor. We have new office furniture and new cubicles. We cleared out 50 years of Tilden's history. When we moved that furniture out, it was great fun. It is a very bright and shiny look, and staff are very uplifted by it. And we want to thank our friends in Mass for really pushing that project forward and fast tracking it. We're heading outside to the little farm and operations. Hazardous trees, we've got plenty of them over at Tilden Nature Area, and supervising naturalist Sarah Federley is working with our fire department, with fuels crew, with the hazardous trees contract program to make sure we keep control of these things, and she's done a great job. So we'll be continuing that as we go through here, because again, we have lots of hazardous trees near the more popular centers of Tilden Nature Area. The goat barn is gone. The old goat barn is demolished and cleaned up. And our next step is to do some surveying and put down a slab and begin construction with project money that we already have. We've been waiting for the opportunity to spend this. And when that construction is finished in the proposal of 2023, We'll bring back some goats and have a very nice place to put them. Corporation Yard, Farmer Stanley Ward and Ranger Matt Mosen have a corporation yard where they keep their equipment and base their services. The sheds are approaching dilapidation, but the wood rats don't seem to think so. They've taken up residence in there and have had quite a go of it. It's not quite so easy to excuse them from their presence, shall we say, because they are protected, and we want to protect them and do all we can. But we're exploring different opportunities there so that we can keep it safe, a workplace safe, and exclude rats safely. And then we have our manure pit where we store the manure that's collected from the farm. And we want to upgrade that, bring it up to water quality standards and professional standards so that we don't have any issues with rainwater and runoff during rain events. The Jewel Lake project, we've had a series of board executive committee meetings and one public workshop as well. The board executive committee has put forth 2 concepts for consideration going forward. One of them is a modified lake and a bypass creek around the lake, and the other one is the restoration of Wildcat Creek. And we're looking forward to our next public workshop, which is on the 21st of April, next Thursday. It'll be, and we'll be introducing these 2 concepts and getting a little more in depth with the public and anybody else who might want to attend. It's a very exciting project, very bold step forward for how we're going to manage this reach of Wildcat Creek watershed through a Tilden nature area. So there's a lot of stuff we look back on. There's a lot of stuff we're looking forward to. Obviously, COVID safe is our big key. Our training for certified interpretive guide. A step below that guide level is certified interpretive host, and we hope to bring that to more docents and other employees, and certified interpretive trainers. We've got a great pool of trainers within staff. So we can do the training here in-house. We're looking to expand that pool so that more folks can do that, give us even more flexibility to provide training that is really park specific as well as professionally applicable to the entire industry. And again, our media training, we've got a lot of new staff coming in. We want to make sure with all those requests for media interactions that everybody's on the same page and they're confident, competent representatives of East Bay Regional Park District. More in-person programming. Couldn't ask for more than that. That's what we do best. That's our gold standard, while still incorporating digital programming into those standard offerings. And as I mentioned, we have vacancies. We're looking forward to welcoming new staff and also our returning staff as the summer season kicks into high gear. And with that, I will thank you for the opportunity to present and look forward to answering any questions or addressing any comments you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. That was a lot.
It's a lot. We do a lot,
of
yes.
great we can tell you're working hard, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Questions from directors or comments? Director Rosario, you were even raising your hand for some reason.
Yeah, you're correct. This is it's incredible how much our interpretive recreation department does, and I think the public has responded to all those improvements, and I think in a lot of ways the INR department has become the new face of the park district, really. And I'm very proud of that department. And Mike, you're a natural leader, and I'm happy to see where you're at. Question is, with all this that you do, there is, I mean, my most recent, giving a talk to Piedmont Gardens. Mm-hmm. To me, that like opened up a whole new world of a community that we need to serve, yes. And the seniors.
Yes.
And it brought up all these issues of accessibility, which I'm very proud that we're working with outdoor research. And and how to get those people to a lot of places. And that this is a community they've been locked in for 3 years now, 2.5 years, and they so want to get out. And if we can have, I don't know, do we have a way where these senior communities can call in and say, hey, can we have this, or can we see this park? Or do we have, are we making sure that we can do these programs to these centers?
I think we have Ann Cassabaum here who could address that.
Yeah.
Hello, hi, this is Ann Cassabaum, Chief of Interpretive and Recreation Services. So we have been doing outreach and engagement to senior centers through our community outreach coordinator, and Yuli Padmore is stepping out of that role in the acting position tomorrow. Jamie Rosati has returned from maternity leave. And, we have information that's on the website to lead groups, senior groups, groups with individuals with disabilities and teachers through requesting a program. But because of the request from the board, not only from you, Director Rosario, but also Director Lane, we are regrouping and forming a plan to do outreach to senior communities. Now with COVID restrictions really kind of easing up, and it seems to be getting more traction with bus requests and transportation. I think now is a good time that we've got going into spring, into the summer to outreach to those communities.
Great. I know, outside of Piedmont Gardens, just I just gave a little talk and they were just so enthusiastic, and they wanted to go out that day. Whoa. But I think it brings to the forefront that the need to in order to get that population out, we have to make sure that they can get to the parks and be able to access them. Judge John Sutter was key point was that if they went there and parked at the normal parking lot, that's too far. Even though it's accessible, it's too far for them. And so, we need to think about those kind of access issues. And I'm really happy that we're looking at that. I'm hoping to get together with somebody from the United Seniors of Oakland and see if their center's open, and same with the Berkeley centers and stuff. So great. I'm happy to see that we're getting there. And then oh God, we're gonna miss James Wilson. Woo, that's huge.
Yeah.
But it leaves room for someone else to shine. And I think you got, I'm so happy that to see our new supervisor at Crab Cove, I think from when I started with the Park District, we've quadrupled our people of color as naturalists in a year, and happy to see that direction.
As are we.
And so, there's so much going on here that's and it's all positive. And congratulations, and hope we can resolve this issue of recruitment, because it's not just us. I think it's every recreation department everywhere. And I don't know how that's going to work out, but maybe we have to start thinking about maybe hiring seniors. So I know there's a lot of seniors that have been doing kiosk duties lately. So that's a possibility, but congratulations. I think the department's running very well, and seeing all these new and incredible ways of reaching the public. And now that we're getting back out again in person, you guys are just rock.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Rosario. Director Wieskamp, is there anything else you'd like to add?
What creativity. I think that's what's so impressive. You've gone through a tough time and learned from that tough time. And come up with new programs, new eager people. And I agree with Dee. I'm sure there's some seniors who'd love to be co-opted in to helping with some of these outreach programs. Seniors just have to have the right thing that grabs them to keep them coming. They're more than willing to work for something that they enjoy and they feel is worthwhile. And I'd like us to remember the VA hospital out in Livermore. Sometimes they're just sort of isolated, and to try to get them out again is really important to them. And I guess I just feel that while there's a lot of districts trying to get all of these new employees, Mike, you and all the others know a lot of people, and you show them what you're doing here. And I think by what you're showing the community, that's what it's going to attract more of the new blood of color or of age, whatever. It's a good place to work. It's a good place to recreate. And aren't we lucky to have such good employees and the opportunity to do such good programming? I'm really impressed. You've come out of a tough time and things are going well.
Thank you so much.
Well, a lot has already been said. And I agree with all of that, and appreciate the amazing work that's being done. I do have a bit of a question, and I think I know the answer based on what you already told us. You know, obviously we do programming in our park district, but it appears we also take programs out into other park and open space areas. Is that correct as well?
That's correct.
So that's what I thought. And of course, that's wonderful because we have a lot of wonderful resources and folks that are trained and really encouraged to put on programs. So I have a question. Do we ever do any of that? And this is a space that always opens up my eyes between the Hayward shoreline and then our, Oyster Bay Park area. There's a huge bit of shoreline that's in the city of San Leandro. And I was just wondering, that which has, endangered species and a lot of open space. Do we ever do any programs in that area? I was just wondering, because that's a fabulous spot, and it's a way for us to sort of connect our parks along that shoreline path there. And something that I've asked about in other meetings is how do we, this is not part of your job, Mike, but someday, how do we make sure that we maybe move paths up a little higher into open space area once we have issues of, the bay moving up. So do we do any programs along that entire San Leandro area, which is really quite beautiful?
Our outdoor, I can't speak authoritatively to it, so I can give you that information. Our folks at Recreation will have the much better idea, and at Crab Cove as well. But one of the things we did during COVID was roving, and that's just when you go out and meet people in parks and on trails. And one of the big things that our recreation department did was riding bikes back and forth and just talking to people who might be in the area. But Director Corbett, I'm more than happy to get you some more specific information about that area and to see what we've been doing and what we have planned.
Yeah, because there's some really great open natural space areas that would be a great place to, be teaching people about on out that way. And, the city of San Leandro has its parks, but we have our interpreters that can do a good job of even adding to what's going on out that way, interpretively speaking. So that'd be fabulous. I'd like to hear more about that. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
know, Director Corbett, we've done a lot of outreach and engagement with the San Leandro libraries, in that area, and been part of discussions in the unincorporated areas of San Leandro there and Hayward. So, and I understand what you're asking about. I do want to say that, Mike Moran stepped into this position as a manager. It's been 1 year. He filled the shoes of Dave Zuckerman, who retired in August of 2020. And it's always nice to hear Mike present. As I like to say, Mike could interpret lint and it would be fascinating. So he's doing a great job, and he's a long tenured employee, but having him at a management level has been great for our department. So good job,
Thank you.
Mike.
I totally agree. This was quite an impressive presentation. And thank you for everything you're doing. You might be new to this job, but it doesn't sound like it.
He's
So thank-
reinventing the job.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much for a very beautiful part of the Park District and what you're doing with it. Thank you.
Oh, I have
Appreciate
one last thing.
Yes, Dee.
I sent Ann, I sent you an email and along with regarding Robert Wilkins and the International Maritime Center. Robert Wilkins was a former on the PAC, and he's moved on. He's now the executive director for the International Maritime Center, and he's compiled a history of peoples of color in time to their seafaring heritage, from African Americans, API, Hispanic, and he's doing a presentation. The center's doing a presentation in May, I think. I can't remember now, but I was thinking if that history is, if you could look at that history and see if we can incorporate that into our interpretation of the East Bay, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
So I intend to. I'll send out a little blurb about it and see if we can't attend those and see what they're like. But it sounds great. Like he was saying, as far as the African Americans, everybody has heard about the Underground Railroad as a road to freedom from slavery, but there were 10 times more people, Africans that got their freedom by sea. So fascinating. I think it has a lot of potential. So thank you.
That's another reason why I'm very interested in the San Leandro shoreline there. There is a ton of history
Oh, yeah.
to share. And I think our interpreters would be very, very good at it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you. All right. Okay, thank you so much. We should give a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, so we have one more item on our agenda. And the presenter has been waiting patiently. So welcome. It's the item number 4, sustainability update waste management. Mr. Kennedy is with us. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. It's certainly hard to follow up an INR presentation, but I will try. Let me share my screen with you. Can you see my screen?
You're on the notes page, Ruby.
I'm on
Yes,
notes
on
page.
the-
Let me. Good?
Yes.
There we go.
Okay,
You got it.
perfect. All right. Good afternoon, Board of Directors. I'm Ruby Tember, Management Analyst for the Operations Division. I'm here today with Robert Kennedy. He's our Chief of MAST, as well as some of our public works staff. I believe I saw Matthew Norton and Andrew Green. They're going to be my phone a friend in case we have any extra questions. Today, I'll be presenting a sustainability update. It's what we hope to be the first of a series of updates to this committee. As you know, the ethos of sustainability runs through everything we do at this agency, and this is largely executed on the ground through our division. And for today's update, we will be focusing on waste management. Quick overview for what we're going to discuss today. We'll talk about the recent developments and successes in the waste management program, our challenges, as well as new developments and next steps. A rather big success recently, in recent years rather, was the expansion of composting services, which makes us compliant with both board directors directives, and state laws, such as SB 1383, which mandates that there will be a 75% organic waste disposal reduction by 2025 in the state of California. All of our parks now have composting services, except Del Val and Sonol. We have some challenges in those locations because they're rather remote, and we need to work with our perhaps different waste management companies in order to do the pickup there for that. Recently, since I want to say about late last fall, we expanded composting services to Cove Canyon, Black Diamond Mines, Roberts, Round Valley, Vasco Caves, Brushy Peak, Morgan Territory. They're largely one area, as well as Las Trampas, MLK Junior Shoreline, and Lake Temescal. And we're always looking for ways to expand composting because, as you all know, green is the new gold.
Mm.
Another success has been the deployment of 3-stream waste bins. Before the pandemic, we had initiated a pilot program to deploy 3-stream waste and select specific locations to see how adherent the public would be to sorting their waste. And as of now, we have 68 bear savers. You can see it in the picture here at 20 different park sites. And we've also improved some of our signage. This is an update of the latest and greatest signage. From what I heard, I think this was one of the last projects Jonathan Hobbs did before he left our agency. We have additional configurations of bear savers at different locations as well, so they don't always all look like this. If you've been here at Peralta Oaks, you'll see we have a slightly different design. We have been using compostable bags in the compost sections of these trash cans, bear savers. And per the updated sustainable purchasing policy, staff will be piloting new compostable bags in all 3 of the bins at select locations. That's something I'll discuss later. And we're also exploring opportunities to add more 2-yard dumpsters to reduce the need for bags in general. In the 2022 budget, we were allotted an additional 1.0 FTE recycling sanitation coordinator. And this is a full-time position that's going to be dedicated for waste reduction planning and waste management, and some other duties and responsibilities will include hauler contract consolidation and cost negotiation. This is something that Andrew had done a couple of years ago at Tilden Park, in which he was able to renegotiate the contract that resulted in cost savings for that. And we want to look at ways to explore that in the rest of the agency. We work with anywhere from up to a dozen different waste management companies, and I think there's opportunities to consolidate as well as save money. We also want to better educate our staff on our different practices. This is something that is really at the forefront of East Bay Regional Parks, and we want to make sure everyone that's incoming to our agency knows about these principles and understands that we need to properly dispose of our waste here. We also want to coordinate with public affairs for community outreach. As you know, most of the waste generated in our agency comes from our visitors, or a lot of it anyway. And we can work with our community better to make sure that we are sorting things appropriately. And if not that, just bringing less stuff into our parks. The recycling and sanitation coordinator will also seek bids for new tracking software for data collection. And that's something that I will also get into later in our presentation. In spite of all of these new successes, recent successes, we still have a fair bit of challenges. Firstly, we need to understand the waste that we generate, and we want to be a data-driven agency, and therefore we need the metrics to make better decision-making. So we'd like to have some kind of method in which we can improve metrics and data collection, so we can understand the types and the quantity of waste that we generate in our agency, the percentage of waste that's diverted, especially when it comes to that state bill. Are we really meeting our goals? Can we truly make that 75% diversion rate by 2025? We need to validate that with numbers. We also want to better understand the costs associated, especially if there's any means in which we could save money. I will tell you, as the operations budget person, we have ever-growing costs related to waste management in our agency. And we don't want the big cost of handling basic utilities to detract from any of our other operational obligations. And finally, we want to use these numbers to see if we can analyze them for areas of improvement. We, as I mentioned before, want to continue training our staff and informing our public. You know, you can go to any park at any given day and there will be trash on the trails, dog waste bags that are left out, general things like that. So we can work better with our community partners to make sure that things are being handled correctly. And also regulation is always changing. So we want to make sure that we're complying with the ongoing changes in regulation in the state, federally, locally, whatever it may be. One way that we can address this data issue is employing new technology. In November of 2021, we started a pilot program that came to an end just at the beginning of March. And it was with a company called Compology. And Compology uses a technology called waste metering. It's a method to quantify and visibly measure the waste volume through camera snapshots. You will see on the left side of the screen, there's the same receptacle. This isn't actually ours, it's just an example. One that's 25% full of waste and one that's 65% full of waste. And that's something that we did at 3 different locations with our agency here at Peralta Oaks, Point Pinole, and Crab Cove. And what these kind of consistent snapshots of the trash can effectively tell us is how much contamination we have. Are we diverting waste properly? In this example here, you'll see that there is a lot of cardboard boxes. And if this is a regular trash receptacle, we can divert a lot of those cardboard boxes by making sure that they're recycled elsewhere. We can also analyze if there's missed pickups. It's kind of almost like an audit of our services. We can be more financially prudent if we make sure that things are picked up when they say they're going to be picked up because we are paying for them to be picked up at that time. It can also lend itself to right sizing. If something is habitually overfilled or underfilled, we can switch out that trash receptacle and perhaps make it live somewhere that is more appropriate and make sure that the particular place where that pickup is happening, it's as full as it can be. And obviously sustainability, we can understand how compliant we are with regulation and understand how green our waste diversion is. And I don't want to focus too much on the actual data here. The pilot itself was very informative, but with it being such a short time period, it didn't really give us a lot of long-term strategies on how we can change. It's really us exploring how the technology worked, the efficacy, as well as the information that we can garner from it. From this cool dashboard, which we can use at every aggregate location that employs this technology, we can understand everything from waste diversion rate by volume, the metric tons of carbon emissions that are generated by the garbage trucks that are coming to pick it up, the metric tons of waste generated, the total metric tons of CO2 created, just a lot of information. Here, this is from the Peralta Oaks parking lot. We had 34 total number of pickups within this specified period of time. On average, the garbage cans are about 66% full at pickup. So we could use that information and maybe do less pickups. Perhaps we could be closer to 75 to 95% full. So they'd be more full, and then the waste management companies would have to come less frequently, and potentially that could be a cost savings. And we also see that there was 3 pickups when the garbage receptacles were at only 30% fullness. So obviously that's a trip that might not be necessary, and there's carbon savings associated with them not coming at that time. So that's just like a snapshot of what this technology can do for us. And I would like to mention, well, I'll let Robert introduce him. We also have a vendor here from Compology who we can talk to later. And additional considerations, as I said before, the sustainable purchasing policy is coming, the updated version to our next board meeting in early May. And for those of you that serve on finance committee, you've got a little bit of a preview of that already. From that policy, we are hoping to create a steering committee to work with central stores in which we can explore greener options in the agency when it comes to buying pretty much anything. And then I know that one thing that we really focused on was how we can limit the number of trash bags that are going into landfills. And I know that's something that's been reiterated here and it's important. I will say that the trash cans that we do use are made from post-consumer plastic, but in that working group, we are hoping to pilot other biodegradable or compostable bags and see how effective they are in the field. If they tear or if they break, that may not be the way we want to go, and in which case we can explore other things. But there's also other things that we can do. There's mechanical methods in which we can eliminate the need for trash bags in general. We have considered, and this has not yet been piloted, it's just something that's a working idea, and that's to deploy 65-gallon wheeled carts at different locations, very similar to how you have at home. And we'll have different carts potentially for the different types of waste. And we can add this appendage to our trucks to pick those up. And it actually reduces kind of the human labor factor of physically lifting trash cans and doing so in a mechanical way. It eliminates the need for plastic bags. And yeah, as I said already, it fixes mini dumps to the district trucks for hauling materials. So something to consider there. And finally, I want to reiterate that staff training is really important. So one thing that we're hoping to develop is either a informational video or brochure for staff coming in. We can make that a mandatory training through the summit program, just so everyone can stay updated on any of the changing rules in the agency or in the state and update it as time goes on. One thing that we do want to work on is contract renegotiations or negotiations, whether we can consolidate services. So perhaps the western reaches of the park could be serviced by one particular hauler, whatever it may be, and see if there's any real cost savings associated with that. One thing that Tiffany is working on with her concessionaires, especially as new concessionaires come on, is waste management plans for larger concessionaires, such as the Bridge Yard. And we are a thought partner with business services on that. We want to continue expanding our organic compostable material collection, especially when it comes to those last two locations, Sonoma and Del Val. We want to make sure that they have compost services. So we can say that every single one of our parks has compostable pickup. And obviously we want to quantify our waste generation to make sure that we are meeting state goals. And whether that's by rollout of the Compology program, we can expand that throughout the agency, or some other technology piece of software, whatever it may be. That's kind of our end goal of understanding waste generated at this agency, and ultimately meet the state recommendation for that 75% diversion goal. And I will stop sharing my slide for now, but if you have anything you want me to go back to, I certainly can. And I have Chief Kennedy here, and I can let you speak, Robert. I kind of took over the show there.
Ruby did a great job in giving us a snapshot of what's to come with MAST and our recycling program. My colleague Brian Sano is on this call as well, just so if you have any questions related to the pilot project that we did with Compology to collect data and get a base understanding of what we're doing here in the district. And so we don't know what we don't know. And the best way to get a baseline is start collecting data. And so the insights that we glean from our location here at Peralta Oaks, Crab Cove, and Point Pinole is letting us know that we've got some room to grow and do better, right? And so in the past 3 months, there was a difference between production and actuals, right? Where we had a 36% difference, meaning we're paying for more services than are actually needed. And this is due to right sizing, our recycling, refuse, and compost containers. But then at the same time, we're not fully back to the offices too. So that might be a reflection of what's going on there. And so we won't know until, we're fully staffed and everyone's back at Peralta Oaks, whether or not those numbers are accurate. And so we're going to kind of hold off here in changing things, but we can also reduce the number of pickups. So in the meantime, a stopgap is, instead of it getting picked up, every week, we can do every other week. And Brian and his team have been great partners in this, because they're giving us valuable insights and information as to what's going on. And so to have an additional set of eyes looking at this data really helps us right size what we're doing, improve our efficiencies, and use that money wisely so that we can provide these services throughout the district. The data that I have, I've got a spreadsheet that Brian was so kind to share with me. We're paying for 130 cubic yards of material to get picked up, but what was actually picked up was 82.14 cubic yards. And so we're paying for that regardless. And so, the fact that we have got an additional FTE and we can focus on this operation is really going to help us streamline what we're doing into the future.
Great. I'm sorry I got off for a little minute. First, someone's wrong with my computer. But thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, Rob, would you like me to add a little bit of color?
Sure.
Awesome. I'm Brian. It's a pleasure to meet everybody. I'm with Compology. Our organization is actually a B Corp, B certified, focused really on sustainability. And we actually won a Best for the World award last year. And this year we actually won from Fast Company, most innovative company doing social good, and 4th in the world, which is really exciting. And Rob shared with you some of the examples of how we can help the organization. But a big part of right sizing is reducing the truck miles that a hauler is driving on the road. So those trucks weigh anywhere from 30 to 60,000 pounds. And they are probably one of the most inefficient vehicles when it comes to fuel consumption. So they get about 2.56 miles per gallon that they drive.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, actually 2.53 miles per gallon that they drive. Yeah, and every single study that has been done, it's about $9 to $27 in road and pollution damage that's caused for every single mile. So it has a big environmental impact. And what Compology does is we monitor people's waste to give them the ability to divert more from the landfill, and also maybe reduce service schedules so that they don't have to have those trucks driving those extra miles. We found on average that about half of the miles that the trucks drive probably are unnecessary miles, because containers aren't usually optimized in terms of fullness when they're picked up. So that's just a little bit of background, and there's a lot of great data that came from the pilot. We monitored the containers from November through the end of March. One container had about 15% of the pickups that were being paid for being skipped or missed. And Robert mentioned also that, as an example, one of the containers, the compost container, on average, it's about 31% full when it's serviced. Mm-hmm. Right? So 70% of it is air, or 69% of it is air that's being picked up. So the reality is you can cut service potentially, right? So there's a lot of great data that came from doing the pilot that can help the park system be more efficient, lower costs, and really drive that goal to diversion. But happy to answer more questions.
Sounds impressive. Anybody else would have some questions?
That was so depressing. 3 miles an hour.
3 miles to the gallon.
3 miles to the gallon. But I'm thinking, not only are they wrecking the roads because of the weight, they're inefficient in so many ways and coming Ellen, going back to the days of Waste Management Authority, where you have contracts where they're taking waste all the way out to the Altamont. We've benefited from some of the funds that have come for park improvements and purchases, but it's so inefficient. Is anything going on with the paper industry to try to come up with tougher products that could replace plastic, that would last long enough that they could actually be used to haul waste like this to a landfill? I would think that would be a fantastic thing to work on. I
We can
have
definitely look
neighbors,
into those options.
I just have neighbors who will not, when it comes to compostable food scraps, will not put it in their can, the proper can, because it's messy. You know, I come with creative things, putting it in a paper container, that a box of cereal or whatever, and drop it in. But things like that, honestly, could help. People will do what is easy much better than something that's difficult. And as for dog waste, again, if you could come up with a product they could use, again, it would be much nicer than not. So we need creativity in all aspects here. But I think people will respond if you make it easy enough.
Thank you. Director Rosario?
Yeah, and I find this just as exciting as INR. This is it's nice to see. I mean, I think I introduced the Park District to those Bear Saver cans. I had to convince my the chief of operations, Jack Kenny, at the time to let me buy those, to try them out, because we were having a huge raccoon problem, and they really worked. But I'm glad to see they're still being used. And I'm really excited about the pilot project in exploring compostable bags. Robert, I think the city of Oakland, I don't know if they still use them, but they use cardboard inserts for some of their cans. So I don't know if that's something we can look at.
Yeah, so the cans, those are disposable trash cans. They're wax lined so that they would last longer. And so that's a product that we can look into when it comes to, the removal of organic waste and recyclables. But, our name of the game is to be able to have those three streams so that we can reduce what's going to the landfill, ensure what's supposed to be recycled is recycled, and then our compostable green waste is being handled in a very efficient and sustainable way.
Yeah.
And so we will continue to explore our options. And that's a good thing of having another partner, is just seeing what other industry partners and leaders are doing, so we can put that mind thought team together and come up with the best strategy here in the district.
Yeah.
And so we are really excited about what the future holds. And now that we can kind of allow Andrew to run with this program, I know he's really excited to have this data at his fingertips and really put his skills to the test.
Yeah.
And move forward.
I really like your approach here. It's great. Also, when I was as park supervisor, I think in the wintertime we had the options of just calling in. Is that still an option with our waste management contractors?
Well, yes, this is great, and I can have Andrew speak to this because he knows it first and foremost. But it's really going to be invaluable for us to get this trend data and information to see how folks are using our parks, right? So obviously during different times of the year, we're going to see the trends go up because, folks are in our parks. But as a result of COVID, everybody's in our parks all the time. And so we need to collect information on how they're utilizing our parks so that we can better source, the services, and then make sure that we are right sizing. But I'll let Andrew speak to that.
Thanks, Robert. Andrew Green, Recycling Sanitation Coordinator. Director Rosario, in many cases, communities are wanting the material to be picked up more frequently, picked up weekly, and to avoid the stuff sitting around and decomposing, animals getting to it. So in many cases, we'll want to have stuff picked up weekly at least, rather than being on call.
Mhm.
Sense.
Yeah, I was referring to, our 20 yarders in the wintertime. In the summertime, you have to have them picked up once a week, but in the wintertime, you could go almost a whole month without, and then, those would be on call. So,
Yeah,
So-
areas like Del Val, Anthony Chabot Campground, a lot of the high use areas as they, kind of taper off park operations, they switch over to that model to where they go on call, as needed. They kind of take a look, and when they need to get picked up, they can phone in for that. And MAST has been fantastic to work with over the last, 5 years. There's been a huge shift. The Bear Savers, they bought in quite a few of those, and we've been doing installations with the assistance of, Andrew and Matt and Robert throughout the park district. So that program is probably tripled or quadrupled as far as where we've put those 3 stream cans at. It's been a huge, push from Jim actually and the board to make sure that we are making changes, educating the public and making the district move forward with our 3 stream. So it's a whole collaborative effort, within operations and everybody, getting the message out there, even down to the sign shop producing the signs for the cans. So it's just a huge undertaking for everybody, but in the right direction.
great.
Yes, it's a lot of work, but definitely in the right direction, and something I think a lot of people have been looking for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
thank you.
another option to explore. I mean, this is something I did when I was a supervisor for just organic waste, just from the crew, generated by the crew in our lunches. We had worm bins, and so maybe we can start the whole vermiculture thing at separate super service yards, because if it got so popular, we had to have 2. We had 2. I don't know if they're doing it now, but I don't think I saw that. But I thought it worked quite well.
I think MLK has one,
Mhm.
small one, but it's growing in popularity.
Good. Yeah, it's just another way to divert.
Yeah, show our leadership.
A
And may I-
little, sorry.
I just had another quick question. I'm sorry, I was off screen for a little while because something happened to my computer, and you may have talked about this already. But are we actually taking the potential composted material to in a way that we can compost it and use it within the park district? Did you talk about that?
So that's actually being explored as we speak. So the GM, Sabrina Landreth, and I had a conversation with the executive director of Stop Waste. And so we're talking about the green waste that the district generates and the potential for that, and how can we reuse that. And so we're just in our infancy stages right now, but it's going to be a huge draw in the future, especially with our tree mortality that we have in the district. What are we going to do with that green waste?
Mhm.
And then now with the green waste and compostables that are coming from our facilities, what do we do with that? And we're going to strategize on our options. Can we create a place in the district where we can produce compost? And then how would we distribute that? And so part of what we're doing is developing a team so that we can do an internal assessment of our operations and what's practical. And Andrew is going to be one of our leading employees to help us get this done in partnership with Stop Waste. And then when we utilize different technologies like Compology to inform our decisions so that we're using our tax dollars in the appropriate manner, that is really going to change the look and feel of how East Bay Regional Parks is handling its 3-stream collection and then ultimate delivery. And so, again, these are exciting times because we are really going to do a deep dive into, how we carry out our services and how we inform the community and the public about where the resources are. And so stay tuned. We're going to continue to develop our program, and then we'll definitely come back with more information as we progress forward.
That sounds wonderful. It sure be nice to use our own compost when we're planting instead of spending money on it.
Yes.
Might as well use what we got.
I
Yes,
could actually add some really interesting color to that. as it relates to compology. Let me share with you really quickly my screen to show you your composting bin.
Mhm.
Can you see the
Yeah.
bin?
Are those plastic bags? Ouch.
Those are green compostable plastic bags.
Okay.
But why I bring this up and it's important is you can start to, as you develop a program like that, see actually how much compostable material you are generating. So you know what amount you'll be able to re-put back into the environment from a compostable perspective. The other thing also is you'll be able to see what materials going into the container. So if the container is contaminated, let's just say it's a compostable container, but you're finding a bunch of black trash bags, that's going to impact the way you'll be able to pick these containers up to ultimately compost the material that's going in. So that's why a lot of times when we partner with organizations to do a program like that, they want to make sure that their material is very clean to be able to compost it. So that's the visual aspect and the data aspect that's going to help Robert drive these programs to be more efficient, to drive the composting programs, as an example.
Mhm.
But this is inside of your container at Peralta Oaks for the composting. And you could see, just as you go back, how little it's being used. This is an empty event where on Thursday, April 7th, you can see at 4:06 a.m. it was emptied. And that's how full it was when it was emptied. And all this data is showing you they're coming on Thursdays. The average fullness is only about 32% when it's being picked up. And we can see the trends of how much waste is actually being produced on a daily basis to be able to suggest, hey, you're only on average generating less than 1.4 cubic yards, right? of waste per week. So you can change it to every other week.
Mhm. Maybe it might make sense in certain parks that have large picnic areas or campgrounds. It might make sense to do composting there where there's lots of compost material. So I don't know. I just throw that out as an idea.
Absolutely. I'm trying to figure out how I stop sharing my screen now. Oh, there we go. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
the-
Any, oh, sorry.
Oh, I just gonna say, the only component that's to doing, I want to, there's going to be a certain amount of having to sort. So.
Yeah, and that's why we're just in our infancy stages. And so we want to make a determination of what's actually going to go into the compost.
Yeah.
Do we really want to pull from facilities, or do we want to just use the green waste that's generated from park ops maintenance, right? So trees, grass clippings,
Right.
other shrubbery that we're pulling out. So
Right.
that's why we're taking a deep dive into that. And then just, the stuff that is getting hauled off, ensuring that those are cleaner practices so that we can tout our numbers and let the community know how they're contributing to our ability to be environmentally conscious and aware of what we're doing. And then just giving East Bay Regional Parks that stamp of approval for what we're doing.
Cool.
Oh yeah, that's a really, really important point. We have plenty of other green compost materials that didn't come into the park. They were already growing there. All right, that makes so much sense. Thank you so much. Any other comments, anybody? Questions?
Moving forward, I think it's great.
Another extremely impressive program. Got a lot of really great stuff going on. We need to start writing a book about great stuff we do. All right. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah. We so
Thank you,
look
Brian,
forward-
for joining.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Well, that was item 4 and the last of the items. It was given to us. It's not a vote, but just the presentations. But thank you very, very much. And our next item is item 5, public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, Chair Corbett, we do have one. I am admitting Kelly Abreu will be joining for public comment section.
Okay,
He's
very
joining
good.
now. And Mr. Abreu, you are in the meeting and you will have 3 minutes to speak starting now.
Thank you. Last week, if anybody was at the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the East Bay Regional Park District, Hayward Salt Marsh Restoration Project, the HASPA plan was discussed. And today we're talking about San Leandro, which is right next door. And well, you know, it shouldn't come as a surprise to San Leandro. The East Bay Times on August 28, 2019, ran a story by Peter Hegarty. The title was Vanishing Nature, Bay Area Beach Getting Washed Away, Rain, Wind, and Time Are Taking a Toll on San Leandro's Long Beach. So it's not news to San Leandro because it was in the news. You know, we don't need to, you know, sit around and suddenly discover that San Leandro has a problem just like Hayward. Hayward's been doing their planning very comprehensively for a number of years. And the question for San Leandro and all those who know San Leandro is, what is San Leandro doing to plan for sea level rise? And why, what are they cooperating with the neighboring districts, or they have their own plan, or what? You know, it's a little bit of a mystery to me. I started asking this a few years ago, and San Leandro was not too keen on doing, you know, these kind of comprehensive planning efforts like Hayward did and HASPA's doing. And then there's this talk about the garbage trucks, the high weight of the garbage trucks. Well, I just Googled it. I know how to use Google. Did you know that a sewage tanker truck weighs 30 to 55,000 pounds? And sewage gets generated on a regular basis. That's a pun. And it requires frequent pickups. So, you know, if you have if you're installing new toilets at Del Val, or sewer lines in different places or whatever, if those are possible, sewer lines would reduce the number of trucks you need a little bit. It would just be the sewer line maintenance trucks. And it would be nice to do that at Mission Peak. I wonder why Del Val gets new toilets, but not Mission Peak. And when I bring up that question to the operations department, I would call upon the staff and the politicians of this district to please answer those emails. You know, when we send you those questions about the toilets at Mission Peak and why pictures of them and why aren't they were temporary. The operations department declared they were temporary when they put them in 7 years ago. 7 years, is that temporary? You know, you guys are running on a geological time frame, but it's not temporary. It's those toilets need to be upgraded. You promised they would be upgraded 7 years ago when you put them in. But the main thing is, why can't the district respond to public communications? Do you know how to use email?
Mr.
Do you know how
Abreu?
to reply, please?
That's your 3 minutes.
Please reply to those toilet emails. Thank you.
All right.
Chair Corbett, that is all for public comments.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. All right, next item 6 is committee comments. Any additional comments from the committee?
I say it was a very informative meeting, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, very well done. And Kelly brings up a point that something that I think we should be exploring, because I know there's a particular spot in Redwood I would be interested in seeing, is especially in our backpack camps or hard to access, is self-composting toilets. National Parks uses them a lot, and they're quite successful. And I think in some of those areas where that are deep, you know, like backpacking camps, and for me, I'm thinking of Redwood and Girls Camp, which we have to close every winter because we can't get a truck down there. And if that was a self-composting toilet, it could be left open year round. And that would resolve the issue of having trucks suck up our waste and truck it somewhere else. It would compost in and we could use that compost. So something to think about.
You're thinking of difficult look to reach locations.
Yes. Mhm.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So
Makes
I
sense.
just think it's so, I'm not blaming this on anybody, but it's so wild that we move all this great green stuff someplace else, and then we bring in some other kind of compost to, for our planting. Think of how much work that was done. So anyway, we're getting there. And thank you very much for the staff for being so, forward looking to get that done. So thank you. It's a lot of work, but we will figure it out. And then we'll be impressing people again with the wonderful work we do at the Park District. All right. Okay. Any other committee comments? All right. Then our next speaker, in item 7, will be Steve Castile, who will be speaking for the Assistant General Manager, who's doing a good job taking care of them today.
Thank you. I just had 2 items. One, just wanted to note that we do have the next board site tour on April 22nd coming up. So that's 2 Fridays from now. So that'll be really good. And then the other thing is going to be the swim season. I just wanted to go over where we are with the facilities briefly. So normal openings for Don Castro, Coal Canyon, Castle Rock, Del Val, Quarry Lakes, Contra Loma, and Lake Temescal. The ones that will be closed is going to be Shadow Cliffs, and that's due to the low rainfall and water levels. As we all know, that's no way to get water to that at this time. Lake Anza, that's going to be for maintenance and ongoing water quality uncertainty. And then Roberts is closed for construction. And just to note too that, Lake Temescal opened April 1st for swim at your own risk. And then Del Val basically open swimming is allowed year round without lifeguard north of the boat ramp. And then basically we also have swimming over at Crown Beach, that's year round, and then Keller Beach as well. And that's our updates.
Sounds great. More wonderful things to do in the East Bay Regional Park District. All right. Director Wieskamp has her hand up. Oops, sorry. Director Wieskamp and then Director Rosario.
Steve, I heard a week or so ago that we weren't sure what the state water district was going to do at Del Val. There were rumors that they might pour more in that's appropriate. We'd all been concerned there wasn't going to be enough for swimming. Do we know more about that situation?
At Lake Del Val, the swim levels are going to be adequate.
Okay.
I think, that's not going to be an issue. What will be, potentially something we're going to have to look at as the water allotments that have been allocated for this year. It was at 15% allotment of our original 400 acre feet, and now we are down to 5%. And they reduced that down for all of the water agencies that are out there as per the governor's request. But we'll be fine for this. We'll be fine for the swim season.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Director Rosario.
Yeah, Steve, do you know, are we still in negotiation about possibly renting a pool in the city of Oakland?
I'm not familiar with that, and I haven't heard anything about that, but I can definitely take a look into that for you.
Okay, great. Yeah, because with Roberts closed, I was interested in providing service for the Oakland area.
Okay, I'll definitely take a look into that for you, Director Rosario.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great meeting.
It's great to have you here, Steve.
Great,
All
thank
right,
you.
any other comments, anyone? I would just add a very impressive meeting, a lot of great work being done. That's all I have to add. And if there's nothing else, we adjourn.
Okay.
See you all again soon. Take care. Thank you. Bye.